I'll introduce Mark while he gets prepared here. Mark has been passionate about photography since age 9 and has spent recent years focusing on documenting the commercial signage and architecture dating back to the travel by car era. Drawn to the radiant glow and buzzing of neon signage at an early age from many outings with the family that spanned the West Colfax Avenue corridor, where the neon signs have made a lasting impression on his mind's eye. Mark travels thousands of miles each year, documenting the American roadside that is rapidly disappearing due to a variety of factors. Most notably, the phenomenon of multi-generational family-owned businesses being replaced by large-scale commercial development. He's active in several groups on Facebook and Instagram that are focused on the theme of preserving this slice of Americana. Mark has been fortunate in the past 5 years to bring his imagery in the public eye. In 2018, he was interviewed by a Denver broadcast news station, KSUSA 9 News, to discuss his efforts to document signage in the Denver area. His work has appeared in numerous gallery exhibitions and has been featured in print publications, including the book New England Candlepin Bowling and a quarterly issue of the Society for Commercial Archaeology, that's SCA.
It was recently featured by Docomomo US. If you actually go to the Docomomo US website right now, there's a feature article about that group.
Mark's also a contributing member of numerous sign and film photography communities of interest, including Signs United. With that, Mark, and if you're ready, your talk titled Colfax Avenue Signage and Architecture, Past and Present.
All right. So thank you very much for coming out physically and virtually. It's a real honor to be able to present. I had the pleasure of meeting Adam it's been over 2 years. I met you over the summer of 2019 at the Cinderella City Mall presentation, and it was during Modernism Week, and I approached you about Colfax neon signs, and of course, COVID happened, and the whole world kind of shut down for a little bit, and you've throughout all of this, Adam, you kept in touch with me. You kept saying, we're gonna have you do this, and I just really appreciate your follow through and for bringing me here tonight to present to everybody. And wanted to thank my friends. Well, first of all, my family. My parents are attending in Florida. My aunt is attending here in Denver virtually. I see some other family friends. I see you, Sherry, and just other friends from Signs United, from Instagram, and it's just really wonderful what a sign can do to actually bring people together, and this is really wonderful. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. I'm going to show a series of slides. It's about 45 slides. I'll definitely be brief, but I'll also not omit any important detail. Throughout the presentation, if you do have questions, feel free to put those questions into the chats. And then during the Q&A section of the presentation, I'll go through and address those questions and, make those as topics for further discussion. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share a screen and begin the presentation. Okay, so again, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm going to be talking about Colfax signs, and the first part of my presentation is to introduce you to who I am and what I do and why I do what I do. The bulk of the presentation is going to talk about then and now, signs that have been altered and signs that unfortunately have just simply disappeared. A really interesting section on unexpected finds about how these treasures are actually hidden beneath something we wouldn't expect. And then talk about renovations and restorations. It's not all doom and gloom. There are a lot of really good things going on Colfax. A lot of things are being refurbished, and There's a whole new energy that's coming about. So really excited about that. Next section about looking forward, things that are in the works, kind of having that crystal ball, talking about where things are headed. Then I have a 5.5 minute video montage. It's a musical slideshow of signs I photographed between 2002 and 2021. Actually, just 2 days ago, there's a sign in there. And then resources references. This presentation, from what I understand, will be part of the recording and will be made available to the community here. And then have some time for some Q&A. So, as Adam mentioned, my passion for photography started at age 9. My grandfather actually gave me a choice between a sleeping bag or a camera. Because at the time I was really wanting to go camping and really, it didn't take me long to, say, oh, I really want the camera. So he got me my first camera and, it's taken off since then. Um, and, nearly over 4 decades later, so I'm not gonna lie, I actually just turned 50 this year. Still very active and, do a lot of photography of signs. Okay. I guess I use the arrow key. Sorry about that. I had a little bit of a pause. One of my key areas of emphasis is to preserve commercial signage and architecture that dates back to the era of travel by car. This was the post World War II time where um, people were starting to become affluent. People were starting to get paid vacations. We had stability politically and economically to where families would pack into their station wagon and um, they would stay at these motels and they would go to these diners, and Colfax Avenue was kind of one of those. I don't know if I can necessarily compare it to Route 66, having traveled a lot of Route 66, but in a sense, it was kind of like a Route 66, a place where everything revolved around car culture, and there's a lot of that too in California. I don't know why I'm having a bit of a delay on my slides. So just bear with me here. I think because of the Zoom sharing, it's making my slide presentation go really slow. So age 9, yes, I know that. I was drawn to the radiant glow and buzzing of neon signage at an early age. From the many outings I took with my family, my parents, my family grew up in the West Colfax area of town. I vividly remember standing on the corner waiting for the bus with my grandmother and seeing all these motels in operation. I even remember seeing the doors open and seeing that big rack of brochures. And at nighttime, we would drive down Colfax and all these signs would be glowing and flashing and so full of life. And it was very much, like a firefly being drawn or a fly being drawn to a light. I'm going to go ahead and now and talk about what Adam had mentioned. In 2018, I was interviewed by Nine News, and the photojournalist was Mike Grady. And with many thanks to Corky Shaw, who runs Save the Signs, he also works for Nine News and has suggested that they interview me about the Sports Authority field. The signage on that was being taken down. I happened to be photographing it just to make a record of it because a lot of what I do too is art, but I also photograph as a way to document and to preserve history. So they had followed me while I was on Colfax and interviewed me. And I'm going to go ahead and show you the interview right now.
The cranes are moving in tomorrow to take down the Sports Authority signs off Mile High. They are certainly big and bright, but I'm going to hazard a guess that they will not be remembered as some of Denver's most beautiful signs of all time. Photojournalist Mike Grady asked somebody who's really got an eye for that sort of thing.
My trick is can I tilt this thing sideways? And that I can.
Oh, yeah.
Setting the shutter. Focus is in place. Check the viewfinder one more time. We're looking good. 1, 2, 3. Hi, my name is Mark Stein. I photograph a lot of signs in and around Denver.
Photography is more than a hobby for Mark,
Is that a beauty or what?
more than a passion.
I feel really honored to be able to do this.
It's his mission.
Documenting what is our vanishing America, trying to preserve what we do have and create art out of it at the same time. I'm going to wait for this gentleman to finish walking. I have been on this aggressive path to document as much of this signage as possible.
So when Mark heard the Sports Authority sign was coming down, he knew what he had to do.
I went down there at about 9 o'clock at night, set up my tripod, and got some long exposure images of Invesco Field Sports Authority Field at Mile High signage to again commemorate and as a way to remember what this looked like.
The Denver native wasn't trying to capture beauty in these photos.
If you want my honest take, it's a plastic sign, backlit with LED and fluorescent. Not anything that I would say would be as artistic or handmade as some of these neon signs. We got such a beautiful sign.
The neon signs lining Colfax may be more picturesque
Look at that beauty.
than the one hanging on Mile High since 2011.
Oh my God. This is unreal.
But Mark still sees it as his duty to capture it.
Come several years from now, it'll be a way to just remember that moment in time.
For next, I'm Mike Grady.
All right. So we're now moving on to the section talking about then and now. We're all familiar with the song, "The Neon Shines Bright on Broadway." The neon also shines bright on Colfax. Colfax is home to some of America's most iconic neon signs. Sorry for that pause there. Thousands of dollars have been invested in the restoration and upkeep of these signs. Each letter in the signs is hand-blown glass. Everything, the electronics are pretty intricate. It's a true labor of love restoring these signs, both from a cost and a time perspective. We are fortunate here in Denver to have neon craftspeople whose talents keep these signs buzzing with life. If a letter needs to be replaced, somebody needs to actually get a piece of glass. They put it over an open flame. They bend it to the shape, fill it with gas, and then hook it up. It's really a pretty amazing talent to be able to do that. And the companies are Acme Neon and Maury's Neon, are two companies we're fortunate to have here in Denver who do neon restoration. So these are some of the what I consider to be some of the most recognizable signs in Denver. We have Davy's Chuck Wagon Diner on the left, and as you can see, I captured it as it was being restored. The sign got repainted. It had all new neon put into it. And then we have the Bluebird Theater. That's a very recognizable Denver sign. And then, of course, we have Pete's Kitchen. These are what I consider to be just, signs that are important to Denver. And these are signs that are very meticulously maintained and hopefully will always remain as such. Unfortunately, a lot of signs don't have the same care and upkeep as what we just saw. Many have fallen into disrepair. Even worse, some have been altered and have lost their glamour. Neon has been stripped away. The signs have been upgraded to LED. Plastic panels have been put in place to cover over the metal. And the original sign has been rebranded, repainted, and the context lost. So, for example, on Colfax, there's this really cool sign of like a teapot, and it's now a bookstore, and the sign got painted over. And I'm not by any means knocking the business, but just with how the sign was repainted and rebranded, it just has a completely different meaning to it. And sorry, I'm having a little bit of freezing right now. Here we go. So This was the Rocky Mountain Motel that I captured in 2002. Really beautiful neon, all lit up at night. This is what it looked like as of last Sunday. Um, as you can tell here, there's no more neon. Um, it's just basically metal panels with very generic letters, just saying what it is. And as you can see, all of these lights have been mounted on the outside of the sign to kind of light it up at night. And it's just not, anything pretty to look at anymore, unfortunately. This was the Desert Hills Motel. This is on about Colfax and Xavier Street. This was an upgrade that was made to the sign. Now, now feel free. I'm not gonna be offended if when I show you these afters that everybody boos or makes noise or whatever. But um, I think they were trying to be creative. Maybe they were trying to be cost conscious, but what I see here is just it's now just a plastic sign with some plastic letters filled with LED lights and in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion and that of many other sign people, LEDs are great to put on your Christmas tree, but as far as a neon sign, it just is no bueno. Here's the Motel Bar X, which is right next to the Desert Hills Motel. This was captured in 2017. Unfortunately, behind there, the motel had a fire and it was undergoing some restoration, which they've done a really good job at. The sign, however, is a different situation. As you can tell, it is completely covered over um, with, very generic metal and just plastic panels. And these plastic panels are pretty much, they're all computer designed, they're laser cut. And it's just kind of sad in a way that the whole handcraft aspect to these signs has vanished. I'm going to go back again. So this is also on West Colfax. This is on the opposite side, the south side. This is the Sidewalk Cafe. Really cool looking sign. Does anybody in the audience see anything wrong with the sign based on this photo? And let me zoom in a little bit. What do we see wrong with this? And feel free to shout out. So essentially the neon tubing was stripped out and these LED lights were put in place. And one of my friends jokes about it. He's an electrical engineer and he calls these Lee's press on LED lights. Unfortunately, I mean, these are, really inexpensive. They're pretty easy to install. But unfortunately, when one of them dies, the whole thing just dies. And it's even worse than having a burnt out neon letter. And in my opinion, again, it does a real disservice to these signs. One of the really neat things is when a sign such as the Bar X Motel is gonna whatever has been upgraded is gonna be downgraded so we can actually make the sign look original. Um, a lot of underneath all these panels and these facades are actually the original signs. And some of the examples I'm going to show are the Famous Chef on East Colfax, the Brandon Iron Motel. And given that those have been found, there's hope. And we do know that, like with the Desert Hills Motel and Bar X, that underneath those, bland panels is the actual sign. So there is, in the future, those can be restored back to original. Um, This, as everybody knows, used to be Saturdays. It was a gentleman's club. Um, this was captured after the club was closed. I believe I took this in 2019. And as you can see here, pretty cool looking sign with chasing bulbs. There's some neon in there. And then there's this black metal panel that's really not doing anything. But um, this was the building itself and the sign were to be demolished in mid-May. I saw a post on Save the Signs that they started taking the sign apart, and underneath the sign, they started finding the original Famous Chef sign. And so I ran down there and over my lunch break and took several photos of it. So that was a really neat, unexpected find. And this is what the famous chef looked like. This is from some historical archives. And I'm guessing this is from the 1960s, maybe 1950s. I'm trying to go by the context of the car. I'm not very familiar with what kind of car that is, but I do see some other cars that look to be from the 1950s. But pretty cool to get voice.
Looks like a 56 Chevy on the billboard in the background.
Yes, I see that.
Probably 55.
Nice.
I think that's a Nash Metropolitan that's sitting next to the sign.
Okay. Okay. Really cool looking car. I can't believe how skinny the tires are.
Yeah, it's
That better-
tiny car.
By 1960, so.
Yeah, my friend has one completely restored, and that's why I know that
Oh, wow.
probably is that. They're like the size of a mini.
Wow.
They're really tiny.
It's really cute. I'd be kind of afraid of driving on snow and ice though.
I mean, it's like driving a golf cart, so
So you probably can't go too fast and get into too much trouble.
or you just like slide over the top of things because it's so light. Who knows?
There you go. There you go. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. So this next one is the Brandon Iron Motel. This is on East Colfax near about Yosemite. I scraped this off of Google. This was their street view from October of 2010. Very nondescript, very bland sign that just says Motel Branding Iron, not Brandon Iron, but Branding Iron. So very nondescript, nothing special. And then when my slide advances for me here we go. Let me just go back. So this was, and I photographed this right after COVID started, which was, I believe this was taken in March or April. The film was developed in June. But as you can see here, it was called the Brandon Iron. And you can see all these are what are called bullet holes where the neon tubing used to go. You can see all the scalloping on the sign on the side. So at one time, this was a really cool looking sign, and it was completely covered over by that metal box. So, again, kind of some treasure being found. So the Brandon Iron, it's actually is Colfax and Xanthia. It over the past several months, it's been going through some major renovations, which include 35 micro apartments and a detached coffee shop called the Glass Arrow, and I'll explain the meaning behind that. And the sign has been undergoing some refurbishment. And I don't know why I'm not seeing the sub bullets, but we'll look at that sign in a little bit. So I actually had the pleasure of going down there just a couple of days ago to get a picture of the sign as it's in progress. And this is the business card of this guy, JJ Bout. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, JJ. Um, he, in addition to running the coffee shop and being an absolute coffee connoisseur, he's also a neon artist, and he has a real love for these signs. And he's been meticulously repainting, remapping the sign to bring it back to its original look. It's not going to be completely original because now that it's no longer a motel, it's apartments. It has apartments on it instead of motor lodge. But nonetheless, JJ is doing an incredible job honoring the history of the sign, and eventually it'll have some neon tubing put into it. But as I mentioned earlier, that's a really long process. It's a true craft that just simply takes a lot of time and effort. So this is a photo I took on Monday of the Brandon Iron Lodge. As you can see, his coffee shop is on the right-hand side, which used to be the motel office. And you can see the sign over there on the left with some really cool looking colors to it. So yeah, as we saw earlier, the Brandon Iron sign was altered, covering up the original sign. That's when it was blue and just didn't even have the correct name of the motel. Um, so actually, these are the bullets I wanted. So talking about JJ, he went into a lot of original blueprints on the sign. And then he used Photoshop and other computer modeling tools to come up with how he would redesign the sign to honor its history while, bring it into its newer context. He had to do a lot of refurbishment of metal. When they did those LED upgrades, they tore a lot of panels apart and lots of, you know, the guts of the sign were just pretty much destroyed, and he cleaned that up. The actual sign itself was hand painted by two really talented sign painters locally. And then the neon, like I mentioned, is going to be bent and installed. This is a postcard that I saw in his shop in the counter. As you can see there, Brandon Iron Motor Lodge. Um, I didn't catch what the dates were of the postcard, but I'm imagining this is from the 1940s. Sorry for the pause here. And this is what the sign looks like now. So you can tell the coloring is really honoring its history and its past, and it'll look really cool once the neon is put in. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is a new restaurant that opened up called Benzina Italian. Brett Anderson, who is known throughout Denver as a big figure in the restaurant industry. Him and his partner started Brothers Barbecue. They decided on taking an old 1960s Phillips 66 Googie style gas station, one of the ones with those swooping roofs, and converted into their restaurant. So that's on East Colfax and Dahlia. So it was built in 1963. It has the iconic Flying V carport, which we'll see some photos of. Its last use was a Meineke muffler shop. So this was a Google photo from 2017 of when it was a Meineke. Um, it looks pretty grungy. It looks, definitely, very well used. And this is a photo I captured of it in 2018 at night. I thought it looked pretty cool lit up at night, and I just happened to be on Colfax and, whipped out my tripod and got some interesting night exposures of it. Because I had a gut feeling that this wasn't going to be around much longer. And this was a photo I took of it in May. As you can tell, it's been repainted. The architecture is still the same. They put in the big windows, the big doors are there, and they were actually in the process of just getting ready to landscape it. You can see the wheelbarrow over there, but you can tell that the swooping roof is there. They've installed new lighting in there. They've installed speakers in there, and it's really cool that they've been able to preserve this piece of architecture and make something really fun out of it. They did the exact same thing to one of these on South Broadway. Um, I believe it's a sandwich shop. I can't think of the name off of the top of my head. Um, but there are several of these gas stations in Denver. There are a couple more on Colfax, and hopefully they'll all get the same TLC as did this restaurant. The next one I want to talk about sign restoration is Eddie Bone's Pig and Whistle. Anyone who grew up on West Colfax knew Eddie Bone as a major icon. He was a professional boxer. He ran a steakhouse, a motel, and a nightclub with live music. And his place was really famous. Unfortunately, it closed and went into disrepair. It burned down, and then it got taken over by a dispensary, which I'll talk about. So the current owner, they're called the Pig and Whistle Recreational and Medical Dispensary, invested in the restoration of the sign because they realized that sign that was out there was something of value, and had some really cool history to it. And they invested their own money in getting it restored properly. Restoration began in the summer of 2019, and then by April of 2019, it was relit. So that's actually April of 2020. So that's my typo. My bad. That's on me. Maury's Neon performed the restoration. This is what the sign looks like. I captured this in 2014. Pretty cool looking patina, definitely very worn. But as you can tell, it says Amy's Fine Auto Detailing, and the context of the sign was changed a little bit. This is the sign right after it was restored. I captured this around July of 2019. As you can tell, the colors are really bold. There's all new neon in there. And it sat this way for quite a while because when they try to turn the sign on, it immediately shut down because the underground wiring was not up to snuff, and they needed to get permits, and they needed to do a bunch of extra work to be able to give the sign the voltage that it needs to operate properly. Davies Chuck Wagon Diner had the same issue with their sign restoration. And again, when I have a few moments of pausing, that's just me waiting for this light to stop flashing, which tells me that I can advance to the next slide. This is the sign right after it was relit. I took this image from Save the Signs, capture on April 9th of 2020. With COVID and all going on, they still went ahead with the relighting, and it's just absolutely beautiful what they're able to do by restoring that sign. So many thanks to the owner for making that investment. The next section, this is kind of the future uncertain. I guess you can call this the doom section of the presentation, or just kind of, we just don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes we assume the worst, but then again, the best can happen. So we'll just have to see. It was announced, I actually saw this on Sunday, that Annie's Cafe on East Colfax was recently put up for sale. I don't have any more details other than the owner of the building wants to put it up for sale as either a restaurant, and they did say as potential redevelopment. So it's unfortunate this will be the second time that Annie's has to relocate it. They used to be over by the University Hospital. Davies Chuck Wagon Diner, that was listed for sale earlier this summer. Um, I heard this news through the sign community, and I found the ad. And what I found interesting about the ad, even though this was very public, was to not let any of the employees know that the restaurant is for sale. But I'm sure after a bunch of us started posting about this on Instagram, they found out pretty quickly. Um, it's just right now the value of real estate is so high that people are just selling, selling, and selling. Um, the nonprofit organization that operates the Aristocrat Motor Hotel as a family shelter have announced plans to redevelop the property. There is a really, serious and important need to have the shelter for homeless families. Um, you know, the kindness of this organization, they're able to do that. But the motel that they're operating out of just doesn't have the space. It doesn't have the infrastructure to support that. So they've talked about redeveloping that property. The eastern section, which is what I'll show here in just a moment, is being reviewed by the city of Denver for as having a historic designation, and you'll see why. So I captured this on Sunday. Really cool looking sign. This is what you'd call Googie architecture, which is kind of almost like a space age kind of architecture from the 1950s. Um, and just some really cool shapes. You can see there are bulbs all around the sign. And then the actual building itself has some really cool mid-century kind of architecture to it. Um, and the hope is that they can expand their facility, but do something to honor and preserve this history. So again, that's kind of remaining to be seen. So talking about what's going on in the works. Tom's Diner, which actually there's a photo of it right behind me here. That was one of the really first major, um, I guess you could say, debacles that happened with the building. The owner wanted to sell it. It used to be a white spot, and the public started a petition, circulating a petition saying, don't demolish it, preserve it, because the group he was going to sell it to was a really large apartment developer, and they would have just leveled it and built apartments. And they wanted to make sure it got historic designation. So, to make a long story short, it wound up in the court system, and finally a compromise was reached to where he found a seller who was willing to redevelop the property but keep the actual building and redevelop a new property onto it. And I was speaking with Adam earlier. He's actually working on this project, and I'm really excited to find out more specific details on that. But this wasn't.
Josh is working project.
Pardon me.
Josh
Okay, okay, great. Yeah, thank you. And sorry I misspoke on that, but yeah, thank you for that. And but this is really it's an amazing save, and I'm sure it's going to be absolutely stunning when it's done. So the White Swan Motel, this is on East Colfax and Lakewood. West Colfax and Lakewood. It was the owners were originally going to tear it down and build what would be called a shoppable motel to basically essentially make it modern, make it, very appealing. And then COVID happened, and that kind of put the kibosh on that. So instead, what they're doing is they're making a lot of updates and repairs, which are very much needed. And they're going to cater to the homeless community, which is an amazing thing for them to do. The Denver Diner building, which was also a white spot like the Tom's Diner building, there was talk that was going to be completely demolished. It's now, based on an article I read, it's going to be a Chase Bank branch, and they're going to actually refurbish the building and maintain the same architecture. It's almost in a way a miracle that this building is still standing. There was a major fire that happened there in, I believe, 2010, and a lot of it had to be rebuilt. So lots of new pieces on the building, but it's really nice to hear that this is going to be adaptively reused. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and switch screens and show the video montage. So part of the presentation, and I believe this will be made available, is where we can get more information to um, either learn more about this, to become involved. The Colfax Museum, run by Johnny Barber. Denver Public Library has some excellent archives, and they've actually split it up by East Colfax and West Colfax. Denver Modernism Week, which is actually how I met Adam. Here's a link to their website. Docomomo, Colorado chapter website. Historic Denver. History Colorado, who actually right now has an exhibit on Colfax Avenue. And then Save the Signs Facebook page, which is run by Corky Scholl. So these are the different references. This will be made available. Just to let you know, just for me to be transparent in that I didn't make this information up myself. I researched it as best as I could and, cited all my references. So all the images contained in the presentation are my work unless otherwise noted, like the Save the Signs and the Google images. Um, Legalese about trademarks, logos, just being respectful of all those. And then the third party content, such as the 9 News interview, that belongs to 9 News. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat channel and see if there are any questions.
Well, thank you, Mark. Before you jump to questions, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Fantastic presentation, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure. And
Yeah, let's hang out, and hopefully Mark will hang out with us and answer questions.
okay, so I'm gonna look at the chat area, see if there are any questions.
Think to say stuff in the chat is just randomness from me, so sorry about
Okay.
that.
No, I appreciate that. So yeah, Snarps is the name of the sandwich shop that went into the old gas station on South Broadway there. Um, and I see a note from Amy that says LED equals. Yeah. I mean, again, LED is great for Christmas lights. I absolutely love them. I see a lot of people hang them up in their houses. But to light a sign to identify a business, really not so great. And what I'm seeing a lot of with LEDs right now is I see it on a lot of like King Supers and Walgreens signs. Have you gone by one and seen where the sign is just flashing on and off like really fast and practically gives you a headache? That's the LEDs, the electronics failing in them. A lot of them are just really inexpensively made and not built to last, and um, they start failing pretty early on.
Can
Um,
you hear?
yes, I can hear.
Yeah, I pushed a button. We always told you not to push buttons, and I unmuted it.
Oh, good.
But all I would say, Mark, that was excellent. We're so proud of you. And as a young girl, I grew up. When we immigrated to the U.S., we grew up on West Colfax, and I guess I took all the signs for granted. But I was there. I'm 72 in its biggest heyday. Eddie Bones, we knew them all, lived by all those signs. Till I got married. Moved away from, but grew up on West Colfax.
Yeah, and some of them are still there, but unfortunately, a lot of them are gone.
Yeah, right.
And I started photographing these around 2002. I remember there was one night I dropped grandma off at home, and then after I dropped her off, I loaded some 800 speed film in my camera, and then just went around the area and just started photographing, and just I'm like,
Yeah, we just took it
Yeah.
for granted.
yeah. But then that's when I started photographing, and then 2014 when I got my first really good digital camera, I just went on a major binge and just spent several days just photographing all up and down Colfax. So great.
Oh,
Thank you
Broadback,
for
great.
joining us. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Oh, brought back a lot of memories for me. Just grew up. I lived in. There's Anna. She's baby, but I'm older. So I lived on lower West Colfax, and we slowly moved all the way up. Lake steam baths, very dear friends. Grew up, with that business too.
So you had mentioned Lower West Colfax. The good
Sorry,
thing,
babe.
yeah.
Is where-
Well, so some really good news about Lower West Colfax is the Meow Wolf is there right now. They kind of built themselves into a corner.
Right.
And what used to be the Ironworks building has been transformed into an event center. And they've done a beautiful job restoring the sign. I was going to put that in the presentation, but I just simply ran out of slides. And, I, wanted to, pick just a few key points. So excellent. Anybody else have any questions, feedback they'd like to share?
Mark, this is Josh. So one thing that anytime I've ever been around any of those signs, what I always thought was really interesting was that the bodies of at least all the ones I ever saw were galvanized. That they were galvanized steel, which I did so it doesn't rust from the inside out. And I know, so I was originally from Pittsburgh, and those signs were junk. I mean, absolutely junk within 20 years because the paint wouldn't stick to the galvanized.
That makes
So the paint would fall off, and then they just get nasty. So those signs really fell apart really quick. And I remember when I came out here, I thought, oh my God, look at all of these signs because they don't rust. It blew me away. Like you're making these things out of galvanized steel and the paint doesn't stick to the galvanized. It falls off. Like in a climate where it wouldn't rust nearly as bad, you'd think that you could just do them out of sheet steel and that the paint would stick to it and it'd last.
Yeah, I didn't know that aspect about it being galvanized. A lot of the new signs they're building right now, they're using aluminum.
Are they?
Um, I mean, so a lot of the purist folks don't like the aluminum because it's, not as original. But it is less expensive. It doesn't rust and paint sticks to it pretty nicely. But again, it can also, we'll just see. We'll just see. The test of time will kind of tell us how it's doing. Excellent. Thank you. And any other questions or feedback?
Hi, Mark. It's Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Hi. I'm having some bandwidth issues. I'm sort of out in the sticks, but it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you.
I had a question more about the photography process because early on when I was photographing signs, I was up at the Crestline Motel in Commerce City.
Yep.
And I'd been there for all of 2 minutes, and an employee comes out of the office and she's like, "You need to leave now. The owner doesn't like people photographing, and you aren't staying here, so you just need to go." And so ever since then, when I'm photographing, I'm just like, okay, I just need to take a bunch of photos as quickly as possible because I don't want that to happen again. So I was wondering what your experience has been, with the owners.
So I've had some really good experiences with owners. I finally learned to just approach the owners and just say, "Hey, I'm Mark. I'm visiting." Especially when I'm in another state, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm visiting you from Denver. I couldn't help but stop and see your beautiful sign. Do you guys by any chance have any postcards or do you have T-shirts? Because I really like your place and I would love to support you." And they're usually like, "Oh no, we don't sell that merchandise." Be like, "Do you mind if I just take a few photos?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And I'm there for an hour, and a lot of times it works out well. But I've also been chased away. I've been chased out of shopping malls. I've been chased out of other areas. I've had some pretty bad experiences too. So sometimes, most of the time, I really try to be transparent, try to meet the owners. But there are other times too to where I'll plan the shot really far in advance, know exactly where I'm going to park the car, get out, take my snaps, and go. And there are a couple of rules I follow. First of all, if there are any children present, I will not photograph a property, especially families that are living in a motel. Yet I just feel it doesn't it disrespects them. So I try to be respectful about that. And if there are any people in the picture, I just, either not get them or I get their permission. But a really valid question, a really valid concern, and I hope that helps.
It does, and I do the same with people. I either wait until they pass by, or if they're just kind of hanging out, sometimes I'll just move on. And obviously the concerns don't come up as much if you're on a public sidewalk, but like in the place in Commerce City, it was private property, and I kind of realized like, oh wait, I actually am not staying here, and she was fully within her rights to ask me to leave. But I like your approach as well with kind of striking up that dialogue.
Yeah, and I also I never park my car on the property, the motel or wherever. I park across the way. Um, but yeah, I mean it's a pretty dead giveaway when I come out there, especially I got this in my hand. A lot of people have their phone. Another thing too is, I don't know what you use to photograph, but you can also just kind of walk around with your phone and just, discreetly. But again, it's it's a case by case situation. But really, most when yeah, most people once they really know that you like their property, that you're trying to honor it, will oblige you. The only exception to that rule is Las Vegas. I've had every four-letter word shouted at me, and practically people, wanting to, I won't even say on this forum what people have told me, some of these owners, but that's Las Vegas.
Doesn't surprise me. Thank you.
Great. Of course, my pleasure. And anyone else?
This was great. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining, Indiana.
Mark, this is Adam. So I've noticed following your social media that you do a lot of shooting on film. What gives you the preference for doing film over digital?
So what I like about film, especially if I'm shooting something from the 1950s, something vintage, if I can shoot it on film, even with a vintage camera, even a medium format camera like this, it's basically it's helping maintain the context. It's really cool when you shoot a sign. I don't have that camera with me, but when I was in Wildwood, New Jersey, I shot with this aquamarine plastic camera, and I was shooting motels from when they were actually created. So by shooting film, I'm able to kind of reproduce the look of what it would have looked like if it was photographed then. And I just feel that, especially at nighttime neon, it just renders on film a lot nicer than digital. Digital, the colors can get a little bit out of whack. And don't get me wrong, 80% of what I shoot is digital, but 80% of what I post is film, if that makes sense. So digital is always my backup to film. But film is kind of like, it's the difference of getting a real tattoo on your arm versus putting a temporary tattoo on. I feel the film, you edge that and you put it down to something a little more permanent. And that, it also holds true for instant film for Polaroid pictures. Just, you get a really cool look from it. Um, and whenever I post any digital images, I don't do anything to make digital look like film. I just, have digital look like digital. But film, I can kind of let the chemistry and the magic take over.
Yeah, you make some great points there, particularly when it comes to shooting neon in particular. I've tried shooting neon with both, and I think you're right that it seems like digital camera sensors really struggle with very bright monochromatic colors versus film, which really gets a more realistic rendering.
Yeah, I love your film shot of that motel on Broadway with your Mamiya.
Yeah, I'm glad I caught that because not long after they destroyed that sign. So
Yo, Yeah, they totally destroyed it. But you brought up a good point. So digital, when you shoot neon and digital, a lot of time it looks blown out. So whatever is red turns yellow, whatever is orange turns white. So here's a photographic tip to everybody. And you could do this with your phone, you can do it with your digital camera. Whenever you're shooting that neon, bring your exposure down. So on an iPhone, even if you press and you move downwards, you'll be able to bring that exposure down and not overexpose that neon and get a some definitely some better look there. Awesome, Adam. Any other questions, comments, feedback?
Mark, I just saw the university. I shouldn't say I just saw it. Recently saw it. The University Hills Plaza has been updated.
No.
Yes,
Really?
it's all white. When I saw the sign getting ripped apart, I thought, okay, you know what? It's getting restored, and they did. The body is exactly the way it was before, but the neon didn't go back into the letters. They have. I walked up to it, and it looks like neon tubes, but it's definitely white LED in there. Incredibly bright.
So I mean, so it's not the stick. Yeah, so it's not the stick on LEDs. So they did go to some effort to shape it, but still, that's really sad.
And what broke my heart the most, not only was that it was so bright, was that pulling up to the stoplight in front of it at night, I couldn't hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I live in University Hills, and when the sign came down, I just thought they were going to replace it with, something they made in Microsoft Word. And so I liked that they retained the original spirit, but the LED I have the same experience when I'm pulling up to the stoplight. I'm like, wow, that is bright.
Yeah. Well, if you want to hear a story, I'll show you something in here. Everyone can see this. So this is a really famous sign in Baltimore on the harbor, Domino Sugars. It was the largest and most powerful neon scaffold sign, and very prominent. You can see it for miles. Everyone who lives in Baltimore knows this. I captured this at like 5 a.m, thankfully, and about 6 months after that, this sign came down and they upgraded its LED. I know they're trying to save energy, and they want to be able to change the color of the sign at any given time. But from what I hear, it doesn't look very good. And the same thing is true about, you know, any of these LED upgrades that have happened. So yeah, I guess I won't be photographing your sign anymore.
So, Mark, down in Gunnison is, I don't remember the name of the hotel or the motel, but it has on the south side of Gunnison, as you're leaving town, is this it's they call it the rotosphere.
Oh yeah,
I stopped there because I didn't know what it was, and I stopped and talked to the people that own the motel, and they told me all about it and everything.
Yeah.
The sign I know about.
Yeah, unfortunately, so it is a rotosphere, and I'm actually pulling up my my Lightroom catalog to show you a rotosphere. Um, so unfortunately, their rotosphere, I haven't actually physically seen it, but I've seen photos. It looks like the whole thing got painted over.
Probably a dozen times.
Yeah, probably a dozen times. So what was funny is my mom is on the call. I actually dragged her out to a place in New Mexico to take a picture of a rotosphere. It's not operational, but it's still all original. And I'm just gonna pull that up. So just give me one quick moment to show my screen here. Just gonna take us to, and there's also a really cool one in Florida.
Is the one in Florida the one in St. Pete?
It's right out. It's south of St. Pete off of I-4.
There's a really
Yep.
cool sign in St. Pete. Actually, there's a couple. There's a Sandman sign that's really neat.
I got that. I got that.
And then there's the one that's on Central that's the big globe that spins and still has the lights.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that one was taken down. That was for a liquor store, and I think it's been repurposed. They say it doesn't spin anymore, though.
The globe one still spins. It's still there. I was there a couple weeks ago and it's
Oh,
still
really?
there and it still
Okay.
spins.
Well, that's great to hear. Okay, so I'm gonna share a screen. I'm gonna show you a rotosphere. Thanks for clarifying that. I'll show you a couple different rotospheres. Okay, so this is a software application I used called Adobe Lightroom. So everyone can see my screen. Yep. So this is a rotosphere. It's spins around, does all this really cool stuff, and has different colored neon tubing, and um they were really popular, I believe, in the 50s. There are really very few of them around, and they didn't last very long. They always had a lot of mechanical issues. But this one was in New Mexico, and my mom, who's on the call, went with us to it.
Right not.
And the one that's in Florida is in Lakeland.
Get it on mute anyhow.
So
Right there, mute.
So this is Lakeland, Florida, at an auto dealership. So this particular sign was actually, if you look really carefully there, these are not neon tubes. It was upgraded to LED. Again, I'm not a big fan of LED, but they had a valid case. The hurricane basically came through and ripped all the neon off. So they needed to have something that would just last longer, especially in those hostile weather conditions. And if y'all have a second, again, I'm not a big fan of LED, but there are cases to where LED is really the only way to go. So this is the U-Drop in Shamrock, Texas.
The new one or the old one?
Old one.
It's been 40 years, 50 years, you think. I remember. Maybe it did.
So let's see here. Let me see if I have a better picture of the U-Drop in at night. So this is the U-Drop bin. It's featured in the movie Cars. This was the paint shop in Cars. So this is all LED here. They get so much hail in this part of Texas. It's in the Panhandle that it was not feasible for them to use neon because the tubes were constantly getting broken up. So they decided to go LED, and I think it looks pretty good. I figured out it was LED when I went to edit the images in Lightroom, and I'm like, the color is just not right. I'm just not getting the right glow. And then I found out later in some research that it was actually LED. But again, that was a valid use case.
What's your favorite sign in Denver?
I knew you were going to ask.
This is a lot question.
I would eat over. I'd probably say it's I'd say it's this one here, the Pete's Satire Lounge. Somebody actually painted this for me. They were I sent them some camera gear. She's an artist, and she sent me this as a thank you. But what I love about this sign, this is right next to Pete's Kitchen, is it has bulbs, and it has arrows, and it has neon. It has a martini glass. It has really cool fonts. And no matter how you tilt the sign, no matter how you look at it, there's always something unique to see in it. Um, like you can even just crop it out where it's just the E with an arrow. There's so many really cool elements working together really nicely. So awesome. Anything else?
I have a
Colfax, slightly off Colfax question. Those Palace Motel, Colfax in Colorado, I think. What's with it?
Um, I don't know the exact on that, Molly. It's in the same condition it is now as when you were last there. So it's still sitting fenced off, and it's just unfortunate the building's kind of rotting away. I've heard some rumblings that they are going to redevelop it into I don't know if it's going to be apartments or retail, but I haven't seen anything concrete as far as whether it's going to be completely demolished or they're going to refurbish it. Do 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 you know Adam or Josh anything about the Royal Palace?
I don't know, but yeah, I think a lot of people have looked at that site to do things with. It's a really good building. And it's pretty large. It fills up the site, so I gotta imagine that it would stay.
I hope so. I mean, they took something on Broadway, which was very similar on about Broadway near Evans, and they were able to make that into a bunch of small businesses.
I think another sign that got saved is I-25 in Evans.
Okay.
Is that
The Cameron.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the buyers committed to keeping the sign. I don't know, whether they're going to restore it with neon or not, but yes, they're committed to keeping the Cameron sign.
But that's a really cool sign. I was a little disappointed with it when I saw how much LEDs were put onto it, and but the bones are good. It looks like it has really good bones, and we'll see. I mean, right now, especially with what's happened with COVID and all, the whole motel idea has become really a novelty again. It's become very popular. Old motels now are bursting at the seams because it's one of the most COVID safe places you could stay. And a lot of people are starting to really appreciate and understand the nostalgia. So hopefully they will keep the sign as it is and restore it.
Mark, there was at Colfax and Drain, there's the old Trade Winds Motel, the balconies, what is that, east and west sides. We did the condo conversion on that building. And when we first started looking at the project, there was a single story stump of the original sign at the street corner.
Oh, really?
And it was just the lowest part of the marquee. And we had a postcard from when the hotel opened, and it had this giant pylon that was higher than the roof. And so we're like, oh my God, wouldn't this be fantastic? And we ran with this idea for a while until budgets became a little more concrete, and this got cut back. But wouldn't it be fantastic to restore the sign? And would they let us restore the sign to its original shape?
Oh, wow.
Because it was like that. And then we could get gigantic signage on Colfax. But it didn't work out. And even the little stump had to end up going away. I think because it was in the right of way. But it would have been so neat to have rebuilt, like
3 borders at Sonic. I would have. But that was a really good save. I mean, it was initially rumored that the building was going to get torn down, so it was a good save being able to adaptively reuse that. So excellent work there.
That's a Roland Wilson building.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there are just some buildings that unfortunately vanished and nobody did anything about. This is before preservation, like the Cooper Theater. I mean, that would have been so cool if but that was just torn down. And I think that was really before people started considering things from the 1950s and 1960s to be historic, but now they are considered to be historic. I mean, it's its own subset of history.
Cooper did plan. There was no chance.
And that came down fast. And of course, I didn't think about getting down there and taking pictures of it, even though I, you know, had, access to photography then. I just didn't think about it.
What do you have to say about the stuff that's at Lakeside?
Well, I obviously like Lakeside. I have a cup here. Um, Lakeside has a lot of really neat original stuff, and I talked with Rhoda. She actually busted me for taking pictures there, and
I've been
nobody's
busted
allowed
by
to.
Rhoda too, so.
You got busted by Rhoda too. I instead of running out of there, I just came right back at Rhoda, and I'm like, I'm taking pictures because your place is really neat. And I said, um, I absolutely love what you have here. You have a lot of treasure. And I talked with her for quite a while, and she is adamant about restoring neon using neon. And she's um, she's willing to make that investment. She wants things done right. I mean, of course, charging, I think it's $4 or $6 for admission. They're, not going to rake in a ton of money to be able to restore the park. But I haven't been back to the park since 2019, and I understand that a lot of upgrades have been made. They've even made a lot of just infrastructure upgrades. So I'm hoping that it all sticks around because Lakeside is truly a living time capsule. I was explaining to my parents, I'm like, even the ticket booths at Lakeside were designed by a really famous architect in Denver. And yeah, I mean, there's so much treasure in that park, and certain things are pretty run down, but there are other things that have been preserved really nicely. The whole carousel area with the neon there is absolutely gorgeous.
Crowther did the
He did. Crowd the He did the Cooper, he did the Esquire Theater, he did Lakeside, he did some houses. Um, his work with And there's a building near me. It's on East Colfax and Dayton. It's called the Friend Building, and it has the signature F, this really large F.
And I think he designed the Fontius logo too, which also has a big signature S.
Yeah, yeah. I did get some pictures of Fontius before that was taken down. Yeah, I think we went through a period of time where things were just torn down and nobody really said anything. One of the biggest losses on Colfax was the Aladdin, which became the Walgreens.
I see Charles Russell is at the meeting tonight. I don't know if he's by his mic. He's turned off on mute. Charles and I have been looking for a photograph of what the Welsher Arms signage looked like new in '62. And we've been told it was like a 2-story tall motel neon style sign. So if anybody ever comes across a picture of what that looked like, I would love to know what it looked like. Right, Charles?
Yeah, and sorry, I apologize. I'm driving back home. I had a late meeting this evening, so I unfortunately missed the presentation. But I've been enjoying the listening to the Q&A on my drive back. Yeah, the closest photo that we've been able to find was taken from that University Hills Plaza parking lot towards the street, so facing the Welsher, and they're probably, I don't know, Josh, what, 50 feet too far to the south to have been able to capture what that sign will look like. It's got to be just out of frame, but that's the closest thing I've been able to find.
The family that originally owned it said that the sign actually came down because it was getting old, but people constantly thought it was a hotel.
Huh.
And would try to check in for the night, and it was apartments. It's awesome.
There's a really cool apartments sign in Greeley that I found by accident. It's called like the Sunrise Apartments. Suns. Yeah, but thankfully now I thought for a while that I was the only person that would just go around and take pictures of signs, and then once I got onto Instagram, I found this whole community of people, and it's pretty incredible how large of a draw signs are to people, and how many books are being written about signs, and they truly are a piece of history. They tell a big story. Um, even if you look at a lot of the bulb signs from the 1920s, it just kind of tells a story of what the era was like.
Mark, I had one question when you were
Sure,
talking.
Charles.
It's sort of a technical question. When you shoot on film, what film do you use a particular brand, or do you shoot film at a particular ISO? What do you shoot on?
Um, yeah, that's kind of a funny question. I actually when I shoot on film, especially when I go on a road trip, and my parents can attest to this, I bring about 20 different cameras loaded with different films. So I shoot anything from black and white film to slide film to 100 speed film, 400 speed. Um, but what I've found in shooting film is that for nighttime neon, I really like the way it looks on Fujifilm. But now I'm starting to like the way it looks on Kodak Ektar. If I'm gonna shoot on a really cloudy, ugly day, I'm gonna shoot black and white film, and I'm gonna push it to like ISO 1600, and spend some more time developing it. If I want just really neutral, accurate pictures, I use Kodak Portra. Um, but a lot of the film depends on what the shooting conditions are, and sometimes honestly, it's what mood I'm in. Sometimes I just want to shoot really bold colors, and I'll shoot Kodak Ektar. Other times I just feel like, doing a lot of black and white. So that's why too on a given road trip, I lug along so many different cameras, and each camera is loaded with a different kind of film. So yeah, I'm sorry, Charles, I don't have, a real clear cut yes or no answer on what film to use. But if you're new to film and you want to know what to shoot neon with, if you want really predictable results, I would say use something like Kodak Portra 400. You can use Ektar, but it's 100 speed, so you're going to need to have a good tripod.
Good to know. Yeah, I was just curious. It's I enjoy shooting on film. It's
Cool.
just so much more enjoyable than digital.
It
So,
is. It
and
is.
do you develop your own film, or do you send it off to a lab?
So I develop my own black and white film. I do that in-house now. My color film that gets all developed at a lab, but I just started my own scanning using a high resolution digital camera. So I actually will use my Sony mirrorless camera to digitize film negatives using a macro lens. And I then have a special plugin into Lightroom that converts the negative into an image. And I'm getting just as good, if not better, results than what the lab would give me doing that. But I'm very much, yeah, I very much follow a hybrid process. I capture on film, but then once it's developed, it then becomes a digital image. And so I don't have a dark room per se, because all my prints and all that work is done once it's a digital file.
Excellent. Thanks for that information.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
And also I believe my slides in will be made available, and I can send you, Charles, a link to the video since I know you're unable to see it. So
Yeah, that would be great. And I wish I'd been able to make it. The meeting I was at lasted 4 hours instead of the 2 that it probably should have been. But that's what you get when you go to public plan commission meetings.
oh my God, 4-hour meetings. Yikes. Okay, well, kudos to you. I hope you get some good rest, Tim. Well, we'll make sure to get links out to you to view this stuff later on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Then those presentations will also being recorded.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, I look forward to checking that out.
Thank you.
This is be a super random question. But Josh, are you the same Josh behind Cinderella City Project?
No,
Different Josh.
different Josh.
Okay. Okay. I was curious and I'm like, I just have to ask it. So, okay. Thank you.
Oh, but he's given talks for us before.
He actually presented a couple months ago for us, so I still need to get that recording up.
I guess there's just a lot of Joshes in the architecture, science, historical preservation world.
Yeah, because there's also the Josh in New York City.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, I actually went to Wildwood, New Jersey with him and a group of people. So, Sign of the Times is his Instagram handle, and he's an incredible photographer and source of knowledge. And yeah, in New York City, it's a lot of what we're seeing in Denver is also happening everywhere. In New York City, a lot of storefronts have closed, a lot of signs are being taken away. It was really sad seeing the Clover Deli sign being taken down and carted away, and that actually got moved to the American Sign Museum in Cleveland, Ohio. So Josh is in New York, and he's kind of like our New York correspondent as far as signs. And I spent a few days in New York City and photographed a lot there, and they just have some incredible stuff there, but it's changing.
Alan, did you take many sign photos through the years?
I haven't taken very many at all. It's one area I have gotten into. Probably the only one.
Now, what are your typical subjects?
Nope.
Both guys. I thank you again, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And I don't know, maybe some point we could lean on you to maybe do a field trip with us with some signs.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was talking to Amy earlier about going out and doing a kind of a photo walk where we pick a given place, we photograph, and then afterwards we have dinner at Pete's Kitchen, or we have drinks at Pete's Satire Lounge. So the thing I love about going to these places, and even one of the sign groups I belong to, is we photograph, but we patronize these businesses. We stay in these old motels. We go to these old diners, and it's just, a way to honor those businesses and, let them, thank them for keeping what they have.
It's great.
Well, all right, guys. Well, I know I still need to get one thing out tonight before I go to bed.
We get stuff on this street.
Huh?
Or else it will clash. Where's my kid?
Oh boy.
Where
Okay, everyone. Well, next month we'll be doing we'll have our speaker, we'll be talking about the Evergleam Christmas tree. And we'll also have some Evergleam Christmas trees in here. So I think that'll be a fun presentation. So
Wow. Okay.
Oh, I'll mark my calendar. Thank you. Well, again, everybody, thank you very much for your questions, for your feedback, and look forward to keeping in touch.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you.
take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.